I don't know if you hang out much on Facebook, but if you do, you should be in this Facebook group, Nina Turner for President 2024. The affluent Democrats still have hopes that we can infiltrate the Democratic Party and heal it from within. And we have to get over that shit. It's absolutely never, ever going to happen. The Democratic Party is irredeemable. A few days ago, I posted my show, Leftists Shouldn't Get Sucked In by AOC, Sheepdog in Waiting. And to say that this show was polarizing is an understatement. Thankfully, the first person who commented was David Parker, who said, "Interesting, he makes a compelling case." But after that, all hell broke loose. Jade Neighbor says, "Progressives are stepping stones to electing leftists in the future," meaning electing leftists to the Democratic Party. Putting progressives in a negative light isn't going to make leftism more appealing to libs or centrists. What I've been saying all along is what we all should have known, is that libs and centrists are never going to be on our team. I said to Jade, leftists need to wake up and figure out that all dreams die in the Democratic Party. And then Jade makes a valid point about third parties. They will never rise to power without ranked choice voting and the abolition of the Electoral College. Trying to take over the Dem Party is currently the only way forward for progressives, leftists. That's where Jade makes a fatal error. We can no longer be trapped in the corporate Democratic Party. So we'll need to resort to what was going on after World War II. At that time, they had 2 active socialist parties and 1 active communist party. They had labor unions that had balls and teeth, and they had people willing to rough it up in the streets. Isaac Roberts says, "Anyone that tells you not to vote for AOC is a Dem sleeper agent. I don't make the rules." I told Isaac, "When will we ever wake up?" And Isaac said, "Don't vote for anyone, buddy. They'll hear your silence and change something." And then I directed him to George Carlin's excellent video, Why I Don't Vote, because George makes the case that it's better not to endorse an evil person with your vote, and then you can complain about him later. But if you vote for that asshole, you have no right to complain. Linda Franceschi says, "You are entitled to your opinion. I adore her. Her integrity, grit, and views make me smile. At 69, there are very few politicians I respect. She and her posse, as I like to call them, are fucking awesome." I said, "Linda Franceschi, I love her too, but I will not trust her until she leaves the duopoly." Then Linda says, "I suspect we will have a third party by 2024 that is viable. If not, I hope I will be off this plane of existence. I am tired." Then Sherry Ann Mansour says, "Linda, of course you do. You love her smile, her youth, her energy, her bright red lipstick. A pretty package that makes you feel good. Instead of these surface lures that do nothing to help your life, judge her job as a politician on her actions. She's a very good political theater tool." And then the worthless rebuttal, "You are entitled to your opinion." We really need to stop saying that. No, you're fucking wrong. And I can prove it. Sorry, but you're wrong. "Well, you're entitled to your opinion." Willie says, "Love this caring, intelligent woman. Need more like her in Congress. I will trust her when she leaves the DNC behind." I don't know why anyone would trust the DNC after what we've been through over the last couple of election cycles. Sharon Kaz Holly says, "At this point, it would be helpful for real progressives to show us where they really stand by swapping that D for an I. I won't even vote for Nina Turner if she tries to run as a Democrat." I second that motion. I won't vote for Nina if she runs as a Democrat either. Do you really want to see them cheat her too? We gave these assholes every chance in the world to reform. If they were going to do it, they'd have handed it to Bernie on a silver platter. Or they could have saved face by making the runner-up the VP like every other time in history a political party needed unity. Time to recognize the fact that progressives have no home in American politics. Now that's what you say to people who tell you that a third party will never be viable. You just say that the third party isn't viable, okay, and then say that leftists have no place in American politics. We're going to have to start shit from outside the system. Comfy people don't want to hear that. Comfy people are never going to pile into the streets. Sharon goes on to say, "The fucking FBI was literally founded to stop political dissent from leftists. We probably won't be able to win any power at the polls in the first place. Probably have to kick them all out of DC and start over. You do not get to limit people's political options in a free country. And I'm not going to pretend that this is a free country when powerful people get to deny political representation to an entire spectrum of political ideology, especially when that ideology is correct for the happiness and prosperity of humankind. Then Susan Schenk-Testa says, "It appears that you are trying to make a statement by not voting for a Dem, no matter who they might be." Where is she trying to lead us? I don't vote for a label. I vote for people. I can't stand the DNC or the RNC, but if a good candidate ran in either party, a good candidate can't do any good in either party though. But if a good candidate ran in either party, then I'd vote for them. I refuse to limit myself to Dem, Repub, or Indie simply out of identity politics. I vote for people, not parties. I think she missed the point that Sharon made. Leftists have no place in electoral politics. It's sad, I admit, but it's true. Sharon is right. Sharon comes back with, "Good luck with that. Do you seriously think that the Democratic Party is going to hand everything over to Nina Turner? She needs the People's Party, and we need to overwhelm the polls in a way that has never been done before." My contention with Sharon there is that the People's Party will just turn into the DNC eventually if we don't get money out of politics. And if we don't fuck shit up and overthrow the current government. If we have no place in electoral politics, I assume that we need to overthrow the government completely. Sharon continues, "I often imagine myself at the dinner table with a family of old school Democrats. They were hippies back in the 60s. The dinner conversation was all about socialized medicine, stopping the war machine, fighting Wall Street. If I went back in time and explained that Bernie Sanders could have become president, won massive down-ticket coattails, and given us all the reforms we had dreamed of for decades and decades, but the Democrats fought him harder than they fought Donald Trump, they would be astonished. The Democratic Party is part of the problem. The Democratic Party is the problem. As popular as Bernie was in 2016, I would have thought that Jill Stein would have gotten 15 to 20% of the vote. She got 1%. I think it was rigged. We have to break the two-party lock on our political process before it breaks us. At this moment, two political parties are accountable to no one and are not even interested in getting rid of the money that corrupts them all. Democracy must prevail over the power of money, or we are going to watch life itself get sold away from us. Don't act like it is a big shock when they deny Nina Turner too. There comes a time when you must break the cycle of abuse. When politicians can win office without promising the voters anything, then politicians are no longer accountable for their corruption and failure. The lesson of 2020 is that the Democrats are not progressive and will never give progressives any power, even if progressives make up the vast majority of their base. And every single vote that Joe Biden won was an abdication of power from the people, from the voters, from the grassroots to the ruling class, and to those who will deny the mandates of the people at any cost just to hold on to their power and money. We must fight this system in any way possible because it is toxic and killing people everywhere you go. That's right, it's killing people the world over. I contend, and this leads us to Glenn Greenwald, that the only people who are supporting AOC right now are comfy. And the only people who think we can do anything from within the Democratic Party are holding on to their privilege. Leftists traditionally represent the needs and interests of the working poor. If we're too comfortable in our urban and suburban settings, we won't do that. We'll keep getting sucked into the matrix and voting for lesser evil candidates within the duopoly. On a November 20th Jimmy Dore show, Glenn Greenwald convincingly makes the case that it's the comfy Democrats who are giving us the problems. He says that the Democratic Party has become the party of the comfy elites, the professional managerial class. He said that the reason that people of color and other marginalized people voted for Donald Trump is because they perceived that. The Republican Party used to be the corporate party, and the Democratic Party used to be the party of the people. At least that was the perception. But now poor people are waking up to the fact that the Democratic Party is the party of oligarchic corruption.
The middle class in the United States is disappearing. All those towns that voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020, their whole town is boarded up. They have no jobs. They live on opioids to numb the pain. And what did they hear in 2016? You voted for Trump because Russia deceived you. And now you voted for Trump because you're all fucking racist. Even though, Jimmy, the reason Biden won isn't because black people and Hispanics and women rose up in anger over how he treated the marginalized. He lost that voting, those voting sectors. Trump got more than any Republican in many years. He won, Biden did, because of white, affluent suburbanites.
He won because of white, affluent suburbanites. Bernie lost because of white, affluent suburbanites. So as much as the oligarchs are the enemy, the professional managerial class, suburbanite elitists are also the enemy. The people who live in your neighborhoods, perhaps. And if you yourself are too comfy to reject the potential sheepdogs that will come in from the inside of the DNC going forward, you're just going to get fooled again. And you can't tell me that you really give a shit about the working poor if you get fooled again. We need to give up on the idea that anyone running from inside the Democratic Party is ever going to fix anything.
Who live in the work in the professional managerial class and who migrated to the Democratic Party for the first time after voting Republican forever because they know that Democrats are now the party of corporatism. That is the Democratic Party. The centers of power and money on the coast, Silicon Valley and Wall Street, combined with the media and the national security state, and affluent white suburbanites. And yes, black people who have voted for generations, who live in Detroit and Philadelphia and Milwaukee, overwhelmingly will still vote for Democrats if they go to the polls. But increasingly they don't because they don't think it's worth it. So that's how Biden won, through affluent white suburbanites.
So I've been saying on this show, because people are celebrating the Cory Bush and Jamal Bowman being elected as progressives into Congress, and I poured some water on their party by saying they're just going to go there and do whatever Nancy Pelosi tells them to do, exactly like the squad. Even Bernie Sanders voted for the CARES Act, the largest upward transfer of wealth in human history, without any repercussion. And none of them had to pay a price for it, just like the Iraq War, because if you all are for something, then it's nobody's fault, right? And so I'm making lots of people angry at me because I'm really poo-pooing the idea of taking over the Democratic Party. It's a joke. It's an obvious joke. They'll be able to take over the Democratic Party with progressives about 5 years after we're all dead from climate change. So I've been trying to start a third party. I've been trying to help. But anyway, what do you make? So I say that having people like the squad inside the Democratic Party in Congress actually hurts progressive causes more than it helps, because it gives the idea to people that there's an opposition party in the United States when you and I know there isn't an opposition party. Nancy?
That's a really good point. You can't really deny that point. It does more harm than good to have progressives inside the DNC because it gives people the false illusion that there's something that's going to happen because of that.
Nancy Pelosi is the progressives' opposition just as much as Mitch McConnell is, if not more, because it's more insidious, because everybody blue check lefties Hollywood think that Nancy Pelosi actually is on the left. They actually think just like Barack Obama, they actually think he is opposing the corporations and the military. Then they're actually not. They're using her femaleness just like they use Barack Obama's identity to do insidious shit. And so what do you say to that? I say it's actually more insidious to have them inside the Democratic Party because it gives the false impression to people that there is an opposition party. What do you say to that?
Yeah, so, it's interesting. When I first started, writing about politics, I was part of the liberal blogosphere, and I believed the whole bullshit about how Democrats are basically good people. They just needed some spine, like stiffening, like they're stiffening their spine, that whole like Daily Kos shit. Yes. And then the more I watched the Democratic Party, the more I realized what bullshit that was, right? But then I still thought, well, the way to change that is by supporting insurgents. And for a while, I actually believed that. And I listened to this story in 2018, in June. Ryan Grimm, who is the Washington bureau chief of The Intercept and a good friend of mine and I think a great reporter, messaged me and he's like, hey, there's this woman running in Queens. against this shitty incumbent who's just like hasn't been to the district in 20 years. One of those guys, just like, he's like a lot really powerful, but nobody knows him, that like in those back rooms of the Capitol where everything gets done. And he said, I think you'd really like her. And I was like, Ryan, I'm not interested in like supporting Democratic candidates. He's like, no, just look at her and talk.
And we need to remember this. I'm not interested in supporting Democratic candidates. And that rebuts Susan Schenck-Testa, who argues that it appears you are trying to make a statement by not voting for a Dem, no matter who they might be. All dreams die in the Democratic Party. You can't vote for Democrats, no matter how good of a sheepdog they may turn out to be later.
To her, and it was AOC. And I looked at her Twitter feed, and it was like that week she had like said, the Israelis had killed a bunch of Gazans, and she went onto Twitter and she said, the oppression of Palestinians is a human rights issue. You can't pretend you care about human rights in the United States and racism in the United States if you support Israel. And I'm sick of people in my own party. And I was like, wow, right? She's running for Congress in fucking New York City saying, I'm sick of Democrats supporting Israel. I was like, all right, I'm interested in her. And I went and then I interviewed her. And it was like, you can see it on YouTube. It was like 250,000 people watched, however many. And I really was impressed with her. I asked her about identity politics, and she said, this is a Trojan horse. They get like Black and Latino candidates who...
Oh, the irony. A Trojan horse. Black and Latino candidates. She said it with her own mouth. And look what she's becoming.
Pretend to be liberal, but they're really, just there to give the appearance of diversity, but it's not real diversity. She said, I asked her if she won, if she would support Pelosi and Hoyer for leadership. And she said,
no.
Absolutely not. They've been there too long. We need new leadership. I won't vote for them.
Nope.
She fucking wins. What does she do? She gets to Congress. The first thing she does is she votes for Pelosi and Hoyer, of course. And then she fires like her staff that's like too critical of the Democratic Party. And she basically turns into a good soldier for she now calls Pelosi Mama Bear. And most of what she does is like identity politics. Yes. Now, let me just say two things. One is that I get why people do identity politics in her position, because to take on true power centers, to like take on Wall Street, to take on the CIA, to take on the Israel lobby, it's really hard. It's like not easy. You're going to get fucking attacked if you do that from every direction, with money, with everything. And it's complicated and it's difficult work to make any progress. But identity politics, that's so easy. You denounce racism, you talk about genocide, I want this statute down. So like you get to feel like you're at least doing shit, right? Like it's just kind of like a psychological easy path. So Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, and they probably have more left-wing politics on the standard Democratic caucus on things that matter, but they're going to get there, and they know that if they try and do any of that, they're going to get crushed.
Yes.
The only space they're going to get is culture war stuff, because the Democratic Party loves that stuff, because you feel like you're changing things when you're actually changing nothing.
And if you did want to change something, you would change the economic reality. And you would stand up to the CIA. You would stand up to Israel. You would stand up to the oligarchic power. You'd stand up to Wall Street.
With a two-party system, if you stay in the Democratic Party, your only choice is going to be to succumb to it. You're going to be a fucking good soldier, the way Bernie is, the way AOC is. You're going to get behind Biden and Kamala, and they're going to let you for a couple months, like, talk a good game every now and then. But they know at the end of the day, you're going to snap into line. And if you don't, you're not going to get anything. I don't see how that kind of reform is possible within the party. I really don't. I wish I did. And for a long time I did. But I've concluded. And AOC was like kind of my last hope.
I want to show a modicum of sympathy. It's easy to get sucked in. I was sucked in by Barack Obama twice. I should have known better the second time, but I wasn't paying enough attention. And that's the problem all the way through. I wasn't paying enough attention. I wanted to love Barack Obama and his family and everything he supposedly stood for, but eventually you have to see the reality. I voted for Bill Clinton too. I really should have seen that. We need to pay more attention, and we need to help the comfy people pay more attention. And if they still won't come around, if they still want to support progressive candidates within the DNC, then they're part of the matrix, and they are the enemy. As much as anyone higher up is the enemy, the comfy Democrats are the enemy. And that's sad because it takes away any option of a peaceful solution. When the shit really hits the fan from the COVID crisis economically, then we're all in a big mess. When people are starving, they're going to pile into the streets. And the comfy people aren't going to pile into the streets with them. They'll just keep ordering their Uber Eats and hope that their boarded up houses don't get raised. I've heard the expression, the well-intentioned liberal class. But if we keep voting for sheepdogs, I think we're going to have to stop calling ourselves well-intentioned. We need to understand that anyone running from inside the Democratic Party is going to be a sheepdog, whether they like it or not. The machinery of the DNC will never allow anyone leftist to rise to power. Never, ever, ever. It's not going to happen. If we keep supporting them, endorsing them with our votes, we are the problem. So no, don't support AOC. Don't even support Nina Turner until they leave the Democratic Party. Then support them tooth and toenail. But they won't get anything done either unless we're willing to pile into the streets behind them or in front of them. Mark my words, with the economic fallout of the COVID crisis, we have interesting times ahead.